cities to cute hipster towns, from natural wonders to man-made gems, China really has something to offer for all different types of travellers. But this video is aimed specifically at people who want to visit China for the very first time. So if that's you, you've come to the right place. My name is Ryan and I just finished up an incredible 5 weeks of backpacking all around China with my girlfriend Emma. It was also my first time in this amazing country and I'm almost certain that it won't be my last. This is my attempt at narrowing down all of the most amazing things we did and the best places that we visited into one top 10 list, along with some helpful tips and tricks along the way. I have made full videos about every place featured in this list, so if you're interested in somewhere and you want some more information, make sure you head down to the description, click through to my China series playlist where you'll find every video in one place. Let's jump in at number 10, which is actually a joint entry. Hong Kong and Shanghai are both huge cities where you're not going to find any sort of luxury accommodation on a backpacker's budget. But outside of that, they have so much to offer. In Hong Kong, you can eat Michelin star food for literal pennies at Tim Ho Wan's. Or why not jump into an elevator at the Hopewell Centre and get these amazing views rushing past you, and that's absolutely free. That was amazing. Or why not escape the city entirely and check out the nature in Kowloon Park or Lantau Island. Shanghai is similar in that you can find some much more traditional areas away from the skyscrapers. You have the Yew Garden and there's also many markets to check out. Both cities also have pretty amazing light shows once the sun goes down. Make sure you check out the view of the Bund in Shanghai and take the Star Ferry at sunset in Hong Kong. Moving on then to number 9, it's China's capital city, Beijing. We found Beijing to be busy but much more quaint than other big Chinese cities. It's easy to find areas with less high-rise buildings and more narrow historical streets known as hutongs. Of course, you also have to check out the amazing Summer Palace and the Forbidden City. Both of them can get incredibly busy, but they're definitely worth checking out. And I'll also recommend checking out the views above the Forbidden City at Jingshan Park. You can also access a pretty famous wall from near Beijing, which may feature later on in this list. In this video, I'm also going to be answering some of your frequently asked questions from the comments on all of my China series videos. One that keeps coming up quite frequently is about transport. How did we get around China? We covered a lot of ground on our trip, taking a big ring around the country, experiencing lots of different provinces with very different cultures. We mainly got around by using trains. Long ones, short ones, day ones, night sleeper trains. We basically used every single type of train there is in China. And I've got to say, as far as value for money goes, they are really good and pretty comfortable too. So I'm just going to give you a little tour of our sleeper train room. So you get a pillow, duvet, got a TV, it's not on yet, coat hanger, charging station, switch, light there, buttons that I don't know what they do, and best of all, a Western style toilet, which is not always a given in China. We booked all of our trains through China Highlights, which I am going to link in the description below. We had a booking agent who booked all of the trains for us, so all we had to do when we arrived was go to a train station in China, show them our booking references, and they printed out all the tickets for us there. At number 8, we have the ancient city of Xian, home of course to the world famous Terracotta Army. They were definitely worth the visit on their own, but I do recommend spending some time in the city as well. The giant wild goose pagoda is really fun to visit in the day and in the evenings, and the city walls are just incredible. You can get some amazing views of the city whether you walk or cycle along them. If we had spent a bit more time there, I'm sure it would have been higher up on my list. Let's move straight on to number 7. This one was a massive surprise for both of us because we only ever intended Kun Ming to be a short stopover. Green Lake Park in the middle of the city is one of the most interesting places to explore, especially if you want a glimpse into the buzz of local Chinese life. And heading out of the city to the Dragon Gate and getting the views over Dianchi Lake are well worth it. Kunming is a real underrated gem, and if you're planning on exploring much of Yunnan province, you'll almost definitely stop over in Kunming at some point. Instead of just stopping through, I really recommend spending a couple of days in the city and exploring everything that it has to offer. In the media, China is often made out to seem like an impossibly vast and scary place. Its culture is so untouched and closed off to the rest of the world. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous before we made the trip there. Before we left for China, we were led to believe that there was no signs in English in any of the cities, that people don't speak English, and it would be hard to even read a menu at a restaurant. And none of these things could be further from the truth. We found metros and train stations pretty easy to navigate, and language never became too much of a problem. On the whole, we found that Chinese people are really, really friendly, and even if they can't speak English, they will try their hardest to communicate with you, whether that's through a translation app or trying to find someone else nearby who does speak English. I highly recommend downloading something like Google Translate, which you'll need a VPN to access because Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they're all banned in China. So if you need a recommendation for a good VPN to use on your laptop or your phone, I've left a link in the description below. As a Westerner, there is probably something that you will have to get used to, and that is you're a bit of a commodity. People will try taking photos of you. Sometimes they'll ask, sometimes they won't, and it's something you just weirdly get used to when you're queuing up at a train station and suddenly a camera will appear in your face. It's a bit like being a celebrity, getting paparazzi'd, so take it as a compliment. At number 6, it's the Chaka Salt Lake. Pretty remote and definitely off the beaten track for most Western tourists. Chaka is a wonder of nature. You may have seen it pop up on social media in recent times, which has led to a surge of popularity. When we were at Chaka, the crowds were insane, which is probably why it didn't feature higher in this list. It was so busy at Chaka when we visited, so if you can manage to get there early in the morning or in the evening, I think you'll find the experience much more enjoyable. I go into this in a little bit more detail in the video that I made about Chaka, but I still do think it's a really worthwhile place to visit. It's so surreal and you're going to get some amazing photos. Is it a bit bright, Emma? Oh. At number 5, it's Lijiang. One of the most beautifully preserved ancient towns in the whole country, Lijiang's little winding streets are just awesome to get lost in. It genuinely feels like something out of a fairy tale. This whole place is a bit like a maze. You just turn down any side street and it just goes on forever. It's really easy to get lost, but that's part of the fun. Make sure you check out some of the tea houses, most of which have an upstairs floor so you can look out the window and watch the world go by. It rained most of the time when we were there, so we missed out on what's normally some incredible mountain views from the ancient city. It's also the main jumping off point for getting to Tiger Leaping Gorge, which is apparently also really, really worthwhile, but obviously we were rained out, so we didn't get to do that. At number 4 is another ancient city in Yunnan province. It's Dali. I loved Dali because it just has a little bit of everything that I like when I travel. Pretty streets, happening bars and cafes, ancient history like city walls and temples, and then you've got beautiful nature surrounding it as well. Dali is a real all-rounder. Make sure you rent some bikes to get yourself around the city. It's the best way to cover as much ground as possible. Before we get down to my final 3 choices, I just wanted to say a few more words about why I think you should travel to China. We've talked about that initial culture shock, we've talked about the amazing transport options, and we've talked about the friendly people. But my best reason for why you should visit China is a bit more of a concept, which hit me at a very specific point in our trip, and I just want to go back to that for 1 second.
I think people have a preconceived notion about what China is going to be like, and I know I did, and it's just, to me, it's a place that's been so full of surprises. I think in China, expect the unexpected.
Traveling around China is a real adventure, and it's really unlike any other place I've ever been. Instead of seeing the vastness as a scary thing, look at it as an opportunity to have a real experience. I really recommend getting out of your comfort zone and just diving in headfirst. Okay, so we're getting down to the final 3 places now, and first up, it's Yangshuo. Without a doubt, the most condensed area of stunning nature that we saw in China was in Yangshuo. Surrounded by beautiful karst mountains and winding rivers. One of the most popular things to do here is take a bamboo raft, but I would definitely recommend doing some hiking around this area. We climbed up to the TV tower viewpoint from the middle of the city, and the views up there were absolutely incredible. I definitely recommend checking out sunset or sunrise at Moon Hill.
The path literally comes out right underneath the archway. It's amazing.
I would also highly recommend heading over to the neighbouring fishing village called Jingping. It only takes an hour to get there by bus, and once you're there you can climb up to Laozai Mountain and get the most amazing view that you'll see in the whole of China.
This view is the real deal.
At number 2, it's the Rainbow Mountains of the Dangxia Landform Geopark. I was actually pretty cynical before we made the trip here. I didn't think there was any way that the pictures on social media could reflect the reality, but they really do. Especially after it's been raining, the colours of the Rainbow Mountains are really bold and you can get some amazing pictures without any Photoshop. But the best time we spent in Dangxia was in the surrounding national park, away from the Rainbow Mountains. The landscapes really reminded us of somewhere in Australia or America, and for a second we really just forgot we were in China.
No tourists, no shouting, no buses. Very nice.
It just goes to show how amazingly diverse the landscapes in China can be. You can go from huge cities to deserts, from karst mountains to snow. It's just mind-blowing. So, unsurprisingly, at number 1, it's the big one, the Great Wall of China. But I have a very specific caveat to add to it taking the number 1 spot, and that is you have to see it in the right way. There are so many options for taking a trip to the Great Wall. Restored sections, ruined sections, partially ruined sections, sections that have a cable car to get up, sections that you have to hike to. I would really recommend taking as wild a route as possible. Having the wall completely to yourself and seeing it in a more ruined state is just absolutely unforgettable.
There's just sections of dense forest. You'll be on crumbling parts of wall and then suddenly it'll just be, you just get engulfed in forest. Completely overgrown.
Buses from Beijing are really easy to take, so there's really no excuse. We stayed at a homestay in a more rural area outside of Beijing with a family who cooked us some amazing food, and the hiking we did around that area of the Great Wall was just absolutely stunning. Thank you so much for watching my top 10 in China video. If you liked it, make sure you leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And with that, we come to the end of my very first travel series on the One Shot Adventures channel. It's been a massive learning curve for me in so many ways. If you've joined me along the way, thank you so much. Coming up next, we have the very first episode in my series about Japan, which I'm really excited about releasing. So I'll see you guys next time.